straight out of school, I always wanted to do software development. And I think that it came from understanding what my strengths were earlier on in life. So every time I saw a problem, I could think about it like an algorithm and ones and zeros. There are some stereotypes around what people expect a young woman. Whether you're building a pro bono on the side, you are doing online courses, you need to show me that you want it enough. You need sponsorship and mentorship,
yes,
to be able to grow. As you journey through your career, there are things you must prioritize, and you must prioritize growth. Growth means that you're building skills, you're gaining exposure,
yes,
and you're building a network.
yes. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're watching us from. This is the Made in Payments podcast. We have been talking to leading exceptional ladies in the payment space who have led groundbreaking innovations. And I'm so excited to speak to who I call one of the foremost tech innovators in Nigeria. Now, she's laughing because she likes to stay at the background and she doesn't like to be seen. But today we're bringing her out so we can hear her story. And I think what's most important and really interesting about her story, which I'll leave her to say, is how she was able to move from core tech into leading a payments business today and navigating the entire space of a male-dominated environment. And so with us today is Eduofon Japhet, who I like to call Edu, and a lot of people refer to as Edu. She is the MD, CEO of HabariPay. HabariPay is one of the fintechs in Nigeria. She will tell you all about it. So welcome, Edu, and thank you for allowing me drag you out today.
Thanks, Kevin. It's a pleasure to be here.
Fantastic. So Edu has been, I think, do I say at the forefront, or has been behind a lot of innovative solutions? And I'll let her just tell her story. And don't worry, the places that she refuses to say, I will remind her so that she can tell you. Because I think, Edu, as we were speaking, before I got you in here, was we need to let people hear our stories. A lot of females and a lot of women believe some things cannot be done. Tech is not for me. I cannot be a developer. It's only guys. But now we started to see female developers. But at the time when you were there, I think you were the only person at that time.
Yeah.
So please tell us your story.
Okay. So straight out of school, I always wanted to do software development. And I think that it came from understanding what my strengths were earlier on in life. So I knew that I loved problem solving. I knew that I was very analytical and I was good with numbers. So every time I saw a problem, I could think about it like an algorithm and ones and zeros. So I knew that I could do software development. And so straight out of school, of course, you had plenty options at the time. But everywhere I went, I kept saying, no, I wanted to be a developer. And a lot of companies weren't doing software development then. So essentially, I did find one company, Resourcery at the time, and they were an IT service company. So they were doing all kinds of things, support. And I said I wanted to do development. And they said, okay, they could find me a place. So I did that for about a year. I built one or two odd solutions. And then I had the opportunity to move into banking, where I think is where I really began to blossom. Because in an IT service company, we were building software for systems.
Yes.
And there was no human interface to it. You couldn't see the impact of it. You just knew that, okay, this was part of some management system. Yeah, so I guess I didn't really get the fulfillment that I was looking for. But going into the banking space, I started out with First Atlantic Bank. So we built the Flash Me Cash solution.
We spoke to Titi in another episode and she talked about that.
So, when you actually see people use the thing you do, yeah, it then gives you a lot of fulfillment. Okay, this is cool. And I can do a whole lot more. So I was the lead.
Sorry, for our Gen Zs who don't know Flash Me Cash. Flash Me Cash, what year did Flash Me? That was 2004, 2003.
Yeah, it's about 2002.
Yes.
2002.
So Flash Me Cash was the first fintech-ish solution that came out of First Atlantic Bank where you could
buy
airtime.
That's how it started.
Yes.
It was just, okay, I could dial a string, and then it was SMS based then. It wasn't USSD or anything fancy. And then you could get your top up for your airtime. So that's how it started. You would get a code. So it was easier than going to scratch a pin and all of that. But of course, it then evolved into SMS banking. You know how with Nigeria, I will never take one step and leave it. So you can buy airtime. Okay, why can't we do transfers? Okay, why can't we do this? And and I think that's how the whole SMS, USSD thing eventually evolved in that space. So that was where I started out. And then after about 2 years, I moved on with my boss, who was moving into another bank. And so I went with him and I spent about a year there. And I decided to chase money. Maybe that's how I'd put it. And I went to MTN and I got a database administrator role.
Oh, I didn't know you were at MTN.
Oh, yes. For 1 month.
That is why I didn't know.
Okay, so you know how I always said I knew what I was good at? And so I got there and all the things I loved about my previous roles were missing, even though the money was better. So I did it for a month and I kept saying, Edu, this is not you. This is not you at all. So again, I was back in a role where there was no human interaction, where I was talking to systems, where I was just saying, oh, is the database working? The maintenance, is this set? And, everything was scripted. Not a lot of innovation once you had put the scripts in place. So I did it for a month. And then I told my boss I couldn't do it anymore. I was leaving. And then luckily, someone I knew at First Atlantic now said he had moved to GT Bank and he knew that they were looking for IT staff. He had put in my CV and I should go in and have a chat. So I did have that chat and I got the role. GT Bank, I stayed there for 16 years or more. Yes. And I know that for someone who, if you see, I had hopped every 2-3 years. So when people say that, you spent how many years in GT Bank? I said yes, because every year seemed like a new year. Every year seemed like a new role.
Yes.
So at GT Bank, we're at the forefront of innovation. Every year we'd come up and say, how are we going to disrupt the industry this year? So you always had a new product. You always had a new project. You always had a new business model. That was when the bank was just going into the retail space. So there were all kinds of things, contact center, real-time banking, point of sale terminals, ATM, internet banking. There were all kinds of things to play around with. And so I loved it at GT Bank. I think that GT Bank is also where I got most of my non-technical grooming. Because when you think about the whole leadership journey, at the beginning of your career, and somebody gave me good advice at the beginning of your career, he said, Edu, you need to have a skill. You need to have something that you're extremely good at, and everybody knows you for that. And so that's what I worked on. I had certification after certification, just honing that skill. But as you begin to move up the ladder, those technical skills are not enough for leadership. And so at GT Bank, a whole lot of opportunities. So when you were in GT Bank, you had your primary role, then you had your human resources responsibilities. You had to be responsible for your team. I did go through a couple of roles. And interestingly, initially I started out as a software developer. When I got into GT Bank, my boss resigned within the week that I resumed.
Really?
Yes. And so suddenly I was thrust into that leadership position where I had to lead the team because I was then the next senior person. And leading an all-male team. So it was an all-male team. And being the only female and then being new. You didn't know where the bodies were. Yeah. So you had to know your onions. People had to respect you and trust that you could lead. And that's where honing your skill comes in. Yeah. And so at GT Bank, I did application development. I went on to do enterprise solution management, where I wasn't building software, but I was also implementing software that other people had built. I learned how to sell in GT Bank.
Even as an IT person?
Yes. So, there are always opportunities. IT people always want to be at the back.
Yes.
But of course, there are some things that the salespeople can't explain. So they would always say, it would be good if someone from IT could just come and explain exactly what you built and how it works. And I said, okay, I can do that. Let me go. I had the first meeting. I had the second meeting. Again, I found that it was something that I loved. I loved being able to create the solution and then come and say, this is how it works.
Yes.
This is how it's going to help you. This is how you need to use it. And take that feedback firsthand and then go back. And my team members didn't really like when I go for meetings, because every time I come back, I'll say, guys, we haven't done enough. We still have to add this, and we need to change this, and we need to do this. But so I learned that and I loved it. At some time, I was moved into a role to do IT risk and compliance and governance and strategy. At the time, I felt that it was a deviation from what I wanted to do. But as I progressed in my journey, I found out that those skills maybe are most of the most invaluable skills that I've learned.
Yes.
So there's never a straight line to your career.
Yes.
You always need to take those detours that help you build breadth. It does a couple of things. So one, you build.
Say it again. They didn't hear you at the back. There is never a straight line to your career.
Never. Never, ever. You always need to take your detours that let you build breadth and let you build a network.
And embrace the detours when they come.
Of course. Definitely. Definitely. And I think that as you journey through your career, there are things you must prioritize, and you must prioritize growth. Growth means that you're building skills, you're gaining exposure.
Yes.
And you're building a network.
Yes.
Those are the things that are going to be invaluable to you for decades to come. So forget the money. I know a lot of young people now just say they are treating their careers like a gig. It's not a gig. So you can't say, this is paying me 1 million, 2 million. You need to think about it holistically. Am I going to grow? Am I going to learn? Am I going to get exposure? Am I going to be able to grow my network?
So it's so much more than what your net salary is at the end of
now. There's some things that you can't even put money to. That you can't put money to at all. I don't want to go into talking about the brand, but also what the brand does to you personally. You also need to be very selective about the organizations that you go into and you build your career, because they can actually add value to you, or they can devalue you. They can devalue you. So on that role, I learned things like how to review contracts, how to look for all the pitfalls, how to make sure you were getting the best deal. I learned about negotiation. I learned about strategy. It took my decision making to a whole new level, because now I had to think of so many other things that you'd never think about as a developer. I had to think about culture. So there are also culture aspects to acquisition of technology, and thinking about how that whole technology ecosystem impacts the organization as a whole. So I think that those are one of my best 4 years in the bank. And it wasn't core development, but it was so essential to making me complete. In that role, I also had the opportunity to work with the central bank. So I hadn't worked in that sphere before, but I worked on the IT standards committee. So we set the standards for what people should comply with in terms of governance, for project management, for software development, for security, and all of that. So that was great for me. So eventually, I did go back into products, solutions, and building solutions again before I finally exited the bank. In that role, I then worked at industry levels on things like BVN, the whole biometric, the whole NIP. So all those were really great exposure. But I think that the networking, the the skills, and then just being able to partner and work with different organizations and look at how to monetize IT. I think that that's what I really took away from that last role and transition into where I am today. Um, Developers can get lost in their world, and sometimes you won't sit back to say, okay, where am I going? For a long time, people leave their careers to their organization. So I'm waiting.
People leave their careers to the organization.
So they're waiting. A promotion is when they move me to the next level. I get trained when my organization trains me. I pick up a skill if my organization lets me do it. But I think that people need to be more intentional and take more responsibility for their careers. I think that during that COVID time, I had a lot of time on my hands, right? Because we were all stuck at home. And then I began to ask myself, where am I headed? What do I want to do? What are the things that are important to me? And I actually did write out that I wanted to move into the fintech space, get into a C-level role. Those are the things that I believed. And I'll tell you the funny thing about it here. So I had written all those things down, and then I got back to work and I just continued business as usual. And then GC Bank was transiting into the holdco structure. And there was the adverts to say we're looking for a head of the payment business. This is the criteria. I saw it. I did not connect what I wrote to what I saw. I just felt that, for me, I'm IT. I just kept doing my work. And I remember that I got a call from a colleague in the office. She said, "Did you see what they put on the intranet?" I said, "Yeah, I saw it, but I guess it's for business people." She said, "No, it's not for business people. Just apply, just see how it goes." Wow. And I now said, "Okay, let me go ahead and do that." So I did. I went through the whole selection process, and eventually I did get the job. So the transition from IT, core IT, into business, I would say for me, a big part of that success has been mentorship. So I do have a boss who has handheld me really well and mentored me through that process. And that's where I would I would say that without that, I would have made a lot of mistakes and probably wouldn't have been able to progress as quickly. Because I know that some things that I would show him and say, okay, this is what we're thinking. And he would say, oh, don't ever try that. If you go that way. And I think that's what everybody needs. So in that example, there's sponsorship and there's mentorship. I struggle. I struggle a lot with fully remote jobs that don't allow you to build the relationships that you need to grow. Because it's out of things like you need sponsorship and mentorship, yes, to be able to grow. And those kind of relationships honestly can be built remotely.
Very true.
They can't be built in a fully remote environment. They can't be. And so those are things that I think that this generation may miss out on. And I don't know how that will play out in the long run. But I would say for anybody who is in an organization and wanting to get the best out of that organization, you must find a way to have sponsorship, which means that you have people who know the things that you do, who are outside your reporting line, who can say, there's this opportunity, let me open a door for you, let me put in a recommendation for you, let me guide you, because the person doesn't have any ulterior motive of wanting to keep you in the place where you are. So you must have that. And then as you take on new roles and try to do new things, I know there's so much you can learn online and all of that, but mentorship is invaluable. It's invaluable. It'll put you it will let you attain in 1 year what probably would take you 10 or 20. So that's what I say my journey is.
Fantastic. I've learned so much, and I've also been blessed to have sponsors and mentors. And I think one of the beauty about having sponsors and mentors is they're not afraid to give you feedback.
No. No.
And one of them actually said, one of them always says, feedback is a gift. And when you get it, receive it as a gift. You may not like what is in the package, but get it as a gift, especially when it's coming from a place of love from your sponsor and mentor. And which is some of the things that we see in the generation these days. They don't, and sorry to shade the Gen Zs, but if you tell them something, next they say you affected mental health because you did say what was liked. But I think when people give feedback, it needs to be embraced. And I think it's part of the growth process. There was something you mentioned that I think it's critical to reiterate. You talked about honing your skills, honing your credentials, getting something you're really good at. And I think as young people, when we start in our career, it's important to get that.
Yeah.
But from what I hear you say, it's not enough to get you into leadership. So whilst it will take you so far, you need a lot more to then build out your lead, especially when you want to get to leadership roles. Because I hear you say you were in IT and you were selling. So what you were doing was you were dummy proofing. And a lot of us know developers. For a developer to sell is very strange. But you went and you were selling. And I think that selling alone put you apart or set you apart because you were now able to get feedback from the users. You could understand, and that helped in building solutions. Amazing. That's critical. That's amazing. So what have been some of the challenges you faced? Because now, as everybody's watching, as we're seeing, you look like superwoman, superhuman. What are some of the challenges that you faced that can encourage someone?
Okay. So I'll be honest, yeah. In the industry that we operate in, where everything is so fast paced, there's a lot to learn, there's a lot to stay on top of. It's a lot of hard work. So I know they are wearing hoodies, t-shirts. That's not it. It's
branded.
Yeah.
It's in branded.
It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of late nights. It's a lot of days going into nights, nights going into days, and all of that. There are some stereotypes around what people expect of a young woman, particularly if you are married and you have children. There are all those expectations all lined up. And honestly, it's impossible. It's impossible to 100% fulfill all the expectations of all the different roles and all the different responsibilities that you're saddled with as a young woman, as a wife, as a mother, and somebody who is then trying to be a leader in some industry. And something always needs to give. The way I look at it is that I have to pick out the things that are priority to me, the things that absolutely nobody else but me should and can do. And my list will be different from yours. I need to determine what that is. And then I need to be willing to take the support for everything else. A lot of times you may be saddled with guilt because you may feel that, I should have been at that football match. And I should also have been at
that inter-house sport.
Yes, I should have been there. And I shouldn't have slept in the office. Maybe I should have been cuddling my kids at home. Yes, so there's all that guilt, and you do need to manage it. So I think that support systems are are important. It's like putting a seed in soil. If you don't have the right environment, you're never going to thrive.
True.
You must make sure that
True.
you have a spouse and a partner that is supportive of the things that you're doing.
That is true.
And you make sure that you have a joint agreement on what things are what those priorities are that are exclusive to you.
That is true.
And how much else you're willing to outsource and delegate. So that must be something that you have a joint agreement about. I've had young women that work with me, and after the first child, they just come and say,
I'm
going home.
resigning.
Why are you going home? Because I have to cook dinner at night and I have to take care of the baby. And either they are not having those discussions that they should have with their spouse, or on their own, they're deciding to be the matter and
trade my career for family.
Yes. But those communications, those discussions, if you do have them, you'll be surprised how much support you can find.
Absolutely.
Some people feel that I must do all the cooking. God forbid that I buy food from somewhere. And sometimes I think that life is in phases. There might be a phase when you're early married that your spouse will say, I always want to eat what you're cooking. Honestly, you're not be tired one day of that same thing that you're cooking every day. There comes a time when it's nice to bring something else in for variety, allows you to do something else. So you need to be open to say, okay, I can get support with childcare. I can get support with tutoring. Or if I must do the tutoring, I get support with driving. But you must have your support systems all laid out. And the same way, when we do IT, we always say we have the main system, we have the backup, so that if something fails, something kicks in, you need to treat your life with that level of seriousness.
Wow.
So you're intentional and you're planning. You're not leaving things to chance. You're not sitting at your desk and suddenly remember, I didn't prepare for dinner. No, it doesn't work that way. So you have to be very intentional about these are the things I need to do. This is how I'm going to deal with them. These are going to be my backup plans if those don't succeed. But you need to first be at peace with yourself that I've done the things that are most important. I've taken support for the things that are not. And I'm thriving and I'm doing the things that I want to do. And I've agreed with all the people that matter to me that this is what we should be doing at this time.
Amazing. And I think that's really, really key for a lot of young people today. Sometimes they don't wait for the first child to be born. The minute they are pregnant like this, I have to resign. Why? I don't think I'm able to cope with this work and the way my body is feeling. And why it's important to tell our stories is because we have had children and built careers. We've had families and built careers. And it's to say that it is possible. And I like what you say, that life is in phases. I have a friend who says you can have it all, but not at the same time.
Yeah.
Life is in phases. Learn to treat each phase as it is. It is a phase.
And it will pass.
After all, when a chapter starts in the Bible, it says, and it came to pass.
Yeah. There's a time where your children want to see you all the time. They want to be all over you. And then they become teenagers. It's like they don't even want to see you. Yeah.
Meanwhile, you would have thrown your career away because they wanted to see you at that time.
So you just need to be able to manage the phases, I think. And I think that it's also important that you're in the right organization. Yeah. Some organizations will support you. I knew that GT Bank was great. So there was all kinds of support.
Absolutely.
For females and a lot of trust. So you'd never felt like you were second class because you were pregnant. And sometimes you do some of your best work. I remember one of my bosses kept saying that, every time I give you a project, you go pregnant. Every time I give you a project, you get pregnant. it's like every successful project triggers pregnancy. But no. So people were comfortable with it. So you felt that you could discuss your children. You could say you needed to do this, needed to do that. But you always did get the job done.
Yeah.
And you need to make sure you're in an environment that encourages you to do that.
And I think you've spoken about, in subtle ways, the importance of excellence at your job. because excellence comes through even when you need to have sponsors and mentors. Someone will sponsor you if the person cannot speak highly of you in a room. You know,
Yeah.
so someone will sponsor you if he's now the only person that believes in you in that entire room. So, so there's a so there's a place for excellence in the workplace.
Yeah.
And we see women, you know, and we see this with women. And I like the vulnerability you gave when you were talking about how you wrote it. You want to move to fintech. But when the role actually came out, you felt, it's not me they are looking for. It's not me. And those are some of the things we see women miss out on. We see women sort of, I'm trying to find the word here, sort of, I don't want to use the word snooker themselves, but you know, we find women miss out on opportunities because whilst a man would be okay with just being 6/10, a woman will, or even 2,
will talk his way through the
he
8.
will talk his way through it. But a woman will want to be 9.995/10 competent on that role. So I like what you said about that. And that is why it's also important, from what Edu has said, it's important to surround yourself with people who even believe in you more than you believe in yourself.
Yep.
Because they are able to take you out of that comfort zone and that self-sabotage type role, you know, when you get them. So you started out always wanting software, always wanting to do software development. But there are people today who did not study computer science, did not do STEM. They are already in jobs, but they want to move into this world of fintech. What advice? So they are asking, can I be a developer? How easy is it to be a developer? I didn't start out like as a developer like Edu. How do we get into development? Must I even be a developer? What else can I do in fintech?
You know, and I think that things have changed. When we started out, you were either a developer or you were a DBA, you know, we didn't have all the other complementary roles.
Yeah.
So now you can be a product person who is just thinking about the product, thinking about how people use it, thinking about the features it should have. You can be the UX design person, thinking through how people actually will interact with the solution and getting them to use it. So there's so many options and fields that you can find yourself in. I think the first thing is always to understand yourself and understand what your strengths are. It's always hard when you're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. So once you um, understand what your strengths are, you need to get somebody who essentially understands the industry and can possibly lay it out for you and say, these are the opportunities. You can be X, Y, Z, and then you can decide to try your hands at either one of them. Today, online, you will find all kinds of free courses. So you don't even need to think about how will I get started. Just go in, play with a couple of them. You'll find online platforms where you can play around, try your hands, and see where your interest lies. When you do find where your interest lies, then you need to look for how to practice that skill.
Yes.
I see a lot of people coming to me and saying they want to get into IT, they want to learn a skill, and they also need me to pay them 10 million naira while they're learning. You know, those things don't work. They don't work that way. So whether it's on somebody's project, doing a pro bono role, just so that you can get the skill. But whenever you want to get into the job properly, people are going to ask you for what you've done.
Absolutely.
So you need to be able to build that experience.
Yes.
Whether you're building a pro bono on the side, you are doing online courses, you need to show me that you want it enough. It's the same with people who are trying to move roles even within an organization. Because sometimes I see people who say, I've been in operations all my life.
Yes.
I want to do technology. And I say, great. So what have you done in technology so far? And they're looking like nothing. I came to speak to you so that you can move me here and then I can learn it. No, you need to show me you've taken a course. You need to show me that you've tried to build one small Hello World application, even if it's crashing. Okay, but you've tried. So here's the interest. Yeah. So you need to be able to take that initiative to find how you can use that skill in some way that you can put beside somebody and say, this is my portfolio. Because I've seen people straight out of school, but they've tried their hands at stuff. Absolutely. They can say, this is my portfolio. I can see the interest. I can say, okay, these are the rough edges. This is where you need help or assistance. And then you can find people who can give you that opportunity. But you must do your own part. So do your part, find out what works for you, try your hands at it, some pro bono or freelance, whatever. And then when you see that opportunity, don't be afraid to say, this is what I've done so far. But if you give me an opportunity, I'll make it work.
So show up first.
Show up.
And do the work first. Don't expect things to be handed down to you.
Don't expect a paycheck while you are learning the ropes. Because I guess that's where a lot of people get stuck.
Don't expect the paycheck while you're learning the role. And there's so many courses out there. And even if you want to get into payments, Intreensic has a payment school as well that you can go to learn, payments, rudimentary working. So that by the time you go to apply for a job, you can say, I've had this certification. Yes. I did this. Fantastic. That's amazing. So Edu is busy at work. She's busy fighting central bank and doing all those things. When you are not working, what are you doing? What do you like to do?
I like to cook. Yes, I do.
But you've not cooked for me before.
I haven't, because you're owing me food. Personally, I always tell people that my morning is my best part of the day. I wake up really early in the morning, even though I don't need to, but I do. So by 3:30, I'll probably be up.
Wow.
Yes. So I'll exercise, I'll pray, I will plan my day. It's where I do most of my thinking. So if people come to me during work hours with a difficult problem, I say, don't worry, when I get up in the morning, I will think about that, give you an answer when I get back the next day. So that's where my mind functions the best. And after I've done that, I cook. It's therapeutic for me.
Wow.
Yes. So I always find something, try out new recipes. I bake, I cook. So I love to do that. Weekends, I love to be at home. I love to be at home. So I'll watch a movie, I'll listen to music, and I'll spend time with my family.
You didn't tell us, you didn't say the part where you love to play football.
That was a phase. That was a phase.
You play football with your children. But I think that's important. And, people just need to realize there's a human side and you do what works for you. You get up really early. Some people may not be early morning people and may feel,
but night people.
Night people. Find what works for you. Yeah. But always make that time to compartmentalize, to just, decompress and just hear yourself think and spend time with God, really.
Yes. Always need to hear yourself think. I think that's one of the hardest things in Lagos to do. But you need to make that time to do that.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. It's been so amazing speaking with you. I've learned so much. And I'm sure everybody watching this would pick one thing, their dog whistle that is for them. And you've been such an encouragement to women in IT, women in payments, just the way you've been able to navigate your journey. And Edu has said it's not late to get into payments or IT. Pick up a skill. Just even go to Coursera or go to ChatGPT. These are the things I like to do. How do I, what's fits me exactly and get it done? So what are your last words?
My last words would be probably for young people who are looking at pursuing a career in payments. I would say, as you make your career decisions, always prioritize growth and learning. So make sure that you're getting into a role that's going to add to you. That's important. I would say never be afraid to take risks.
Yes.
Your opportunities are always outside your comfort zone.
Yes.
So you need to come out of your comfort zone to make the most of them. and get all the support that you need to make yourself successful.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It was really lovely spending this afternoon with you. You have been watching Made in Payments, the Women in Payments edition, which will be airing, or which is airing over the International Women's Day celebration. We are thankful and we are happy you were able to spend some time with us from wherever you're watching. Thank you for bringing us to your screen. My name is Nkebet Meshele. Watch our other episodes and we'll be sure to bring you more trailblazers who have shaped payments in Nigeria and in Africa. Hear their stories, see what they did, listen to the nuggets you can get from there, and have an amazing day ahead. Thank you so much, Edu.
Thank you.